Hello, everyone. Some comments before the class. Um, you read for today what happened during the years of interregnum, that is to say, the moment when there was no king in England. But I would like to make some comments as regards what happened before the English Civil Wars. Some of the, we're not going to go deep into the strategies of war or anything of the sort, but some of the ideas that can then be analyzed effectively when we're talking about well, the whole period. These are the years. We said English Civil Wars because in fact there were two moments. There was a truce in the middle, but what we care about is the following. The two sides, yes, and called the royalists and the parliamentarians, nicknamed Cavaliers and Roundheads. Yes, if you notice the Roundheads, hats and helmets, the helmets were rounded, so that can help you remember the nickname. And you've got there on the screen more or less which were the supporters of each of the two sides, right? Notice that within the royalists there were some commons, some people in the House of Commons, a minority. This is good to start thinking that the House of Commons was not a monolithic block, all thinking in the same way. There were groups. And notice that in the parliamentarian side, the sections of society are lower. Doesn't mean that these are the very poor. Not everybody, of course, was very low class, but it is a much more diverse social group, the one that we have here. Notice as well that we have Puritans, but also independents. It's not that this was a Puritan war, right? In fact, Cromwell was not Puritan. When we say independent, it means somebody who was not Anglican, but within the Anglican Church, but with its own ideas. There were also Presbyterians in Parliament, so many groups. And then you've got the names of the commanders, right? Rupert, Frederick. The ones we must remember are Cromwell, of course, and Fairfax, who will be key in winning the war. Now, both sides knew that they needed some help, especially at the beginning of the conflict. So let's see if we can guess. For example, who would help the royalists? Probably some section or some country that has more connection to Catholicism than to Protestantism. So yes, that's right. So and the parliamentarians, well, somebody who would be more connected to hatred towards the king. So we can guess that, and these pictures are taken from a video game that there is a video game on the Civil War, so I thought it was interesting also to show you these images. So the Scottish would, on the first part of the Civil War, would be against the king. Yes, we know that they were, the Scottish were enraged because of Charles and Lord's attempt to impose the Book of Common Prayer on the Scottish Church. So these people were the ones who defended the covenant of the Presbyterian, more democratic church that the Scottish had. So the Scottish would, on the first part of them, which is called the First Civil War, be on the side of the parliamentarians. And as I was saying, the royalists would be backed by the Irish, right? Remember, the Irish are Catholic, so they would be on their side. Now, this is a very, we don't study battles and strategies of war in this course, but we do make a point when the battle is so famous and well known that it is part of, the identity of the nation. Yes, if you mention Marston Moor, everybody knows this is the battle, that one of the big victories of the parliamentarians. That's why we mentioned it. Only because of the symbolic power of that name, right? Not because you're going to be studying the name of the battles and when they happened. Right, something super important. Remember we said that England, as many other countries of the period, didn't have a professional standing army where people would be paid for fighting for the nation, as we have today, as the modern nations we have today. This was something different. Remember that the power of the king depended, the military power of the king and the kingdom depended on the support of these big barons, the big lords, the nobles that would supply service. Yes, this comes from feudal times. Plus, in this new socioeconomic world we studied, also the financing of the wars was given by this new group, yes, and this new section of society, the gentry, that were the ones who had real money to pay the taxes. With all that, that was all that the king, any king in those days, needed to go to war. Now, what happened with the parliamentarians? What they did is to create an army that was professional, right? It was not people who would be called just for war, and in the case, as was the case of the previous wars, where, well, you would go to war in the continent, and then when the war is over, you go back to your own duties. No, this would be different. That's why it is called a new model army, with people who are disciplined, very well equipped, and regularly paid. This is key, right? So these people will be professionals. And notice this part, the promotions was based on merit, not class, which was the case. Remember that in the past, in order to be a knight or to have a high rank, you had to be part of the nobility. This was not the case with the new model army, because Cromwell and Fairfax and the people in the parliament that were in charge of preparing this army, what they did is choosing people, no matter if they were from low classes. This is key, because the army would have a different social nature than other armies. They would be chosen. People would. There is a question of social mobility here, because the men who would be from the low ranks of society could very well advance within this army. This will give them a lot of power, symbolic and real power. Yes. Well, there are more victories. The Battle of Naas is one of them. And the king finally surrendered to the Scots. Remember, the Scots were the allies to the parliamentarians, to the Roundheads. This is the end of what is called the First Civil War, because the king actually surrenders. Now, by this time, the army have become really, really powerful, right? And notice this quotation. They say, "We are not a mere mercenary army, hired to serve any arbitrary power of a state, but called forth to the defense of our people's lives and liberties." So this is very important for us to understand, that the power of the army is rising, and they see themselves as fulfilling a cause. Yes, there is a new identity there. And of course, they will have the power of the sword. Now, notice that here we have conflict of power with Parliament, because within Parliament, not everybody was willing to let the army, when I say the army, we say the officers, but also the rank, the lower ranks, to make decisions that were political. But where did power lie? In the army. At one point, when the first civil war is over, Parliament refuses to pay some of the salaries that were that should have been given to the army. So the army occupies London in 47. This is just an example of how these people were becoming very powerful, so much so that they could push Parliament to redress their grievances. In the meantime, Charles is can escape, yeah, because there is a moment here of a lot of conflict within Parliament too. People who are more prone to have some kind of negotiation with the king, some others who want to break completely with him, others who want to have him killed. In all these very tumultuous months, Charles escapes. And the second, what is known as the Second Civil War, begins. In this, and notice that this time the Scots side with the king. Yeah, they chose the wrong side there. But well, this goes to show how complex was the relationship of these units, Scotland and England, right? The Scots leaders, of course, supported Charles because Charles promised them, well, certain things, for example, to respect the Presbyterian Church, right? So there was a negotiation there. But in the end, we know very well that Cromwell and Fairfax, New Model Army, were powerful enough and they defeated this alliance. So there are two civil wars. But we learn of one long conflict, but with this, the interesting part on that, well, the Scots would be first against and then for the Stuarts. Now, please remember, please, in the future, the Scottish would be always on the side of the Stuarts' restoration, right? Although it's a complex relationship, after Cromwell, the interregnum is finished, we'll see that Scotland will always be on the side of the Stuart restoration. But look at the following. This is something I want you to pay attention to. In 1648, the king is a prisoner, is still a prisoner of Parliament, and we have conflict inside Parliament, as we said, but also army against Parliament. The army wants to, sorry, I forgot the S there. The army wants to punish the king. They are very resentful. There is here also, remember that these people are from lower classes. And while in Parliament, we have a divided opinion. We are people who are men that said, well, this is it. We wanted limits to the royal prerogative, but by no means ended up with monarchy, and let alone executing an anointed king. Well, this is when violence comes in. Cromwell, with the power of the sword, purges the House of Commons. Yes, a purge is a political term. That means when through violence, somebody gets rid of enemies by killing them, like happened in history. In this case, they were just arrested and forced out of the commons. Yes, all the members that were hostile to Cromwell's ideas and the army's ideas, well, they were forced to leave in a very violent way. Let me see. This is a scene from the movie. Right. This is a scene from the movie To Kill a King. And well, it was important for me to show it because I want you to start thinking about well the role of the army in all the conflict and then during the interregnum too. So what was left is what we call the rump parliament. Rump is anything that is left, yeah, after every. It's like something that is left when nothing else, when everything else has been removed. Yes? So that's why it is rump. It is a nickname because in fact there were more than half of the members were ousted, right? Well, important for us, this is the parliament. This is the group that will try the king, right? So interesting again to ask ourselves how legitimate was that trial, the trial of the king. The charges were out of a wicked design to erect and say that Charles had done this, had erected an unlimited and tyrannical power, traitorously and maliciously levied war against the present parliament and the people therein represented. There is a typing mistake there, sorry. So the charge is a treason, right? That was the charge, treason against the nation, because for the parliamentarians, they represented the nation, right? Start thinking how legitimate this is. Of course, do remember that, well, who could vote in those times? Only the property owners, etc. So for the later discussion on the legitimacy again of this trial. Now, these were the charges. Again, the trial was legal. It took place in the House of Commons, and but again, the House of Commons had been purged, right? It was the rump, the one that decided. So all the people who were against executing the king were out of the picture, right? By the way, this moment of the purge is remembered as Pride's purge, because well, Colonel Pride is the one who actually did it, although they were sent by Cromwell. Now, the trial of the king. He would say, yes, and this is the first part, Charles does not acknowledge the trial as valid, so he refuses to offer any defense, right? He doesn't defend himself because he says, I do not know what subject can be sure of his life or anything that he calls his own if you try a king. So I do plead for the liberties of the people of England. What he's saying here is nobody can be safe if anybody can try a king. But also, and very important, he never recognized the legitimacy again of the parliament to try a king, a monarch. This is, of course, in line with, very coherent with what he has, and consistent with his idea and his beliefs in the divine rights of kings and absolutism. So he was true to the end to his beliefs. Again, to see the two sides of the story, this also is interesting. So this is a famous painting of the killing of the king. Yes, notice that in those times, in the paintings you could have the same person in different moments. Yes, in one he's walking, then his head is about to be chopped, then it's chopped. Yeah, and some of the reactions. Yes, after this, many people started wondering if it hadn't been too much. Right, well, so now we're going to stop with the video and we'll go to the Zoom class to discuss some of the policies and measures of the interregnum that took place during 49 to 60. See you later.